This new video includes 2 of the Mermay art challenges that I did, as well as a version of an original character named Arcturus, and a new animated space background. Here I decided to do a cephalopod-based merfolk. I did a mermaid because I have done several males, and I was more in the mood to do a female. And I mostly based this merfolk on a squid. I also did more of an angry facial expression just because I decided I'd been doing too many that were only happy lately. I wanted to do something that looked a little bit different in facial expression. I used a solid fill background here to separate the line art from the background just so my eyes could see it better. Although underneath that, the original water background is still there. Sometimes this is a useful technique so that you don't get confused after you've already fully painted a background when you're then moving on to painting the figure or line art. In Procreate, I once again used alpha lock and clipping masks so I could paint just over the area I'd solidly filled in. I also used the selection tool to help get the area inside of the lines to make a solid color fill before using alpha lock and clipping masks. I also created a color palette ahead of time to use for this that I selected as a good one for a squid. I gathered and used photo reference of various squids and members of the cephalopod family to help me when coloring and designing the patterns for this. I used a multiply layer on a clipping mask above the base color, as well as base the coloration primarily on Barry's bobtail squid above any other type of cephalopod. Here you can see I made the background visible again by turning off that solid gray layer, and using alpha lock I'm colorizing some of the line art to give it shadows and highlights. Here I was testing a theory to see if Procreate would record a clear background around an artwork when I did the video recording in Procreate, just to see if I could do some special effects tricks. Unfortunately, it recorded it as having a solid black background, so there goes that idea. But I did this study of an extinct fish called Mawsonia in order to test this theory out. Mawsonia is a large, extinct group of coelacanth lungfish that were hunted by Spinosaurus in ancient Africa. The very largest of them were actually several meters long, and a very large extinct freshwater fish that lived in the giant delta bays and freshwater swamps in the time of the dinosaurs. I advise you do additional research on paleo art and paleontological facts because they're very interesting and can add to overall understanding of nature and for creating a fantasy worlds. Oh, there it swims off. Here I'm painting the background for the upcoming Mermay, in which I put some Mawsonia first. I duplicated and modified the mouths on them, then I put layers between and painted in some atmospheric effects for the water. On top I did the light streaks and I added additional bubble effects. By moving each one with stroking motions, I was able to record as if they were swimming off the page. Just a subtle effect that could have obviously been animated better, but I think it adds something to the overall video. Based on a merfolk I did last year, this mermaid is one of my favorites I've done this year. A type of river-dwelling merfolk, this species is going to be on several worlds, and I do still need to do a finalized name for this race. I based the coloration on one particular fish, but I modified it from that coloration. So I didn't copy that fish's coloration exactly, but I based most of the coloration on a fish. The fin configuration and overall design is also not based on a fish. misnomer or misnamed fish, the brown, silver, and black Oscar fish. which in reality is orange, black, and turquoise. Don't know how people can missee turquoise as silver and missee a very vibrant orange as brown, but there you go. There's a bit of a brownish orange in it, and I added a little bit more of the greenish turquoise to the effects. I really like this particular makeup itself, and I hope everyone also enjoys it. As for this section here, this is doing an animated space background as suggested by a commenter on my previous video. This was an idea I also had myself, but after someone commented it, I decided I absolutely had to. I'm going to be doing more animated backgrounds after this as well. I'm using a screen recording of Clip Studio Paint here to help show how I'm making this background. The basics of using Clip Studio Paint are available on YouTube, and I'm still learning things. I find it difficult to remember how to use this program to animate and difficult to learn, but the more I do it and the more I insist, the more I study and the more I try, the better I'll get. Painted the base background nebulas in space and the stars in Procreate. Then I saved them with a clear background as a PNG as two separate things. I imported the far background on its own animation folder and had it visible for all the cells. Then on a folder above that, I did the base star layer because I have really good nebula, space, and star brushes in Procreate, better than the ones I currently have in Clip Studio. In a separate animation folder, I did different twinklings for the stars and then paced the timing of it. In a separate animation folder, I did the different types of streaking comets that go across the screen. Also in its own folder, I did a fade in, which I duplicated to do a fade out. I saved two copies of this, one to use as a quick transition and one without the fading in and out to use, just as an animated background. It took a little bit of tinkering around, and I edited parts of this recording. I also didn't record a couple parts of this animation process. I wish I could say it was a fast process, but for me, it is pretty time consuming. Still, some animations are much easier and faster and slower than others. The great thing about Clip Studio is that you can do painting style animations, so the animations look like they're painted because you're using painting tools to do it. I also made sure to take my time to get certain aspects of this correct, which included using a lot of blur brushes to blur the different lights around the stars so they looked more natural to me. Here's the full background animated now at full speed. So that I would have something that would need the space background behind it, I decided to do a character of mine named Arcturus. I simply removed the anatomical details that weren't necessary considering he'd be wearing clothing, but other than that, I accurately depicted this humanoid new god. From my story, The New Gods, as well as Gods Awaken, Arcturus has several different versions of the same character. In every iteration, he's Loki's son and the firstborn of the new gods. He also tends to be the most powerful of the new gods, and he's also always the god of time, protection, law, heroics, valor, hope, warrior, justice, memory, power, magic, possibility and altering of fate. This is the awoken battle form of a version of Arcturus whose mother is Bastet and father is Loki. Due to the size limits on the canvases, I couldn't do his wings in Procreate, but I did his body and his clothing designs. Here's 3 different clothing designs I had to choose from. I swapped out the middle one with the boots from the first one for the final design. Here I imported that and deleted the 2 unnecessary ones. I made sure his size was adjusted so I could fit both of the eagle wings on. As you can see, the animated background is behind this resized version of the screen recording. The plain turquoise blue background was annoying to me, so I somewhat quickly painted in an abstracted space background just as a placeholder. I intended to import the other one later. The final size of this is 11 by 17, which is too big of a canvas size to do properly in Procreate. I decided to do the wings on their own layer, you'll see in a little bit, and duplicate that, then color in on its own layer underneath and use clipping masks, the same sort of technique I use in most digital programs. I only needed to sketch and then ink one wing because I could duplicate and flip it. They're meant to be identical on both sides. If you don't want it to be absolutely identical, you can also warp, modify, and change some details from one wing to the other, while still duplicating your original lines or sketch, which saves you an awful lot of time and allows you to benefit from digital art. I zoomed in and rotated this a bit for ease of inking, rather than worrying about how perfect it would look on the screen recording. Sometimes the pivot of your wrist really needs to be taken into consideration. It's much better and easier on your wrist and for precision for you to rotate the canvas or paper sometimes for what feels natural for the rotation of your wrist. I made sure the lines were closed here by turning off the other layers so I could just focus on the wing. Then I corrected everything and added some further details before I was ready to finally duplicate the liner for the wings. I then flipped it horizontally, which I took a little moment to figure out and remember how to do that. I actually had to go to edit, and then I found the option there to flip. I managed to make the size correct so that it actually fit on the canvas correctly without going off the side, which I was very happy with. still working on the new animated end card and hope to get it done sometime soon. So Valerios, please consider subscribing if you enjoy my videos, and if you do, click the notification bell for post notifications. I aim for a new video every Wednesday, but this week in particular I did get sick for more than 2 days, and that's what delayed this video. I hope you aren't too upset that it was delayed. Feel free to leave any questions, constructive criticisms, suggestions, and other things you'd like to in the comments below. See you next video. Goodbye!